Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Brave Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Jena Rodriguez, and I am so excited that you are here. You are in for a great treat. My guest, Andrea, is with me, and I am just really thrilled to finally meet her and bring her brilliance to you. And we're going to find out more about her in just a minute. And I just want to remind you, if you're new here, I am a brand and business and brave strategist, and I help entrepreneurs really catapult their brand clarity, their profit enhancement strategies, and ultimately build a business that gives them the freedom they desire, whether it's in business, a business lifestyle, or in a personal lifestyle. So that's what I'm all about, and I'm clearly about the brave. And so we're going to dive in and have that conversation with our guest today. So let's welcome her aboard. Hi, how are you?
Hey, Jena, it's great to be with you.
It's so great to be with you as well. And you know what? I just realized I always try to ask before we start the call, is it Andrea or Andrea?
Oh, it's Andrea. You got it right. Yeah.
Just answer, right? Just say yes. And I realized that I had another guest and she said it Andrea. So there was a little difference. And I was like, oops, I meant to make sure and get that clarity. So please tell everyone who you are, what you do in the world. You've been an entrepreneur for 20 years or plus. So would love to know what's really created that for you and who you serve.
Yeah. So again, name's Andrea Waltz. I'm the co-author of a book called Go for No, which is all about teaching people how to overcome their fear of failure, rejection, and the word no. And I didn't start there. Like most people, where you wind up is never where you start, right?
That's right.
So actually how I started was I was getting a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice, met my husband at Lens Crafters, and his pitch/pickup line was, do you want to write a book with me? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then he said, and by the way, he said, do you know that corporations hire outside speakers and trainers and consultants and bring them in and usually pay them more than, they pay them really well, and that we could be those people. We just need to quit our jobs and launch our own company. To that, I also said, yeah, sure, why not? I had nothing to lose. And that literally was 20 years ago. And
wow.
and so back then we did training specifically focused in the retail niche, because that's where both of us had all of our experience. I had worked retail for years, so had he. We did sales training in the retail space, and management training and customer service training. And so we did that for a few years. But the one thing that we always taught was this go for no idea, this go for no message, which is really a sales philosophy, sales strategy, and that's what everyone loved. And so we finally said, you know what? Go for no is such a powerful message. We love it so much. I had such a huge passion around it. And so we just kind of dropped everything we were doing, and we rebranded back in 2007 as Courage Crafters, which I know you can appreciate, being your brand is brave.
That's true.
which I love. And so we rebranded, and all I do all day long, Jena, is so weird, is talk about the word no, which is so strange.
Yeah.
But it's such a huge obstacle for people. And I do have a passion, because I think it's one thing to have a fear of other people telling you no, right? I mean, we all have that as something we have to overcome. We also don't want to give ourselves the no and really kind of engage in self-rejection, like, no, you can't do that. And so battling our inner demons and battling the no's that we get from people and how to deal with that and overcome that is really what I focus on.
I love that. And I saw the name of your website and all of your information and stuff, and I was like, this is so good, go for no. And you can tell us more about that philosophy, but it's just this sense of, I remember telling a group of clients, it's like, if you would just go for the no's, the yeses will show up. Stop focusing on the no that occurred, and get all worked up about it. So what, and I love the fact that you've rebranded yourself over the years, and you just really stepped into what really became the platform, right? And the message that you really wanted to share. And so what do you find is the biggest challenge people have with no, and how do you help? What do you think is the overcome for that?
Yeah, the biggest challenge. So here's what we see a lot. When people learn the concept, like let's say they read the book, there's two groups of people. What happens? Two groups of people. The first group is like, oh, go for no's. So you mean I should hear more no's, just like you said, hear more no's, get more yeses, go out there, fail my way to success. I get it. And they just take off. And you don't have to really help those people. They get it. The second group of people get it, but then they say, but I still can't do it. Like I can't do it emotionally. I'm dealing with still fear and anxiety and I can't do it. And so some of it, not to become like a psychologist, which I clearly am not, but you have to, people need to kind of work through those fears. And to some extent we can help them, to some extent we can't. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, the answer is I can only beg, plead, and cajole you just to go out and fail and hear no. At some point you have to take action. And I wish there was a better secret. I wish I had some like little secret nugget to say here it is, but
here's the magic pill, right?
Yes. The most cliched answer is, well, you have to take action, because you have to take action. I mean, that is what it comes down to. And I tell people sometimes, give yourself permission to fail. Like when especially if you have children, which I don't, but I see a lot of my friends do, and I've watched over the years, and they're so good with giving their kids permission to fail. Like, hey, don't worry about it. And the kids are like, they fall off their bike, right? And when we were kids, I didn't care about failing. Somewhere along the line, though, you lose that sense of tenacity, and you just care about what other people think. And then everything becomes proving yourself and being perfect. And so here we are as adults, and we dive into things that we don't know what we're doing. And it's like, oh, but prove yourself and be perfect. And then you freak out, right?
Yeah. It's something I just like heard or saw it's kind of like trying to figure out why does that happen, called why is it as a child we give ourselves so much more permission, and of course our influencers around us are doing so, but it's almost like as children we're not aware of the judgment of others, or like we're not that keenly aware. And then we, of course, school and high school and college, like we start to become aware of this universal judgment that occurs, and how we start to try to protect ourselves even further.
Yes, so absolutely. That is totally it. That is totally it. And you reminded me of something that I also heard or saw somewhere recently, and it was that exact thing. It was that awareness of judgment. Yeah, there must be something out there. And I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. I thought it was brilliant at the time, because I thought that is exactly what it is. It's that awareness. And then once that awareness kicks in, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I am being judged. Everyone's, you think everybody's paying attention to you. But of course, when you get into 7th and 8th grade, you think everyone is monitoring your every move, right? People know what you wore yesterday, and they're looking. Yeah, right. They're paying attention to what you're wearing today. So yeah, you see, there's a lot of that baggage to overcome as adults, a lot of that reprogramming. So I tell people permission to fail. It's one thing, especially from a sales standpoint. Like if I said, Jena, right now you need to go out and I need to close 3 sales. You have to do this. Like the pressure is on. As opposed to me saying, Jena, go out and get 3 no's. Just go out, have fun, fall on your face, get 3 no's, and just experience it and see that you survived. It makes it a different process.
Totally. Yeah, it's a completely different, approach, and yet you still may make 3 sales. you
might. Yeah, you might. And that's the thing is you never know. We like to think that we know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no to us. Right? Like, oh, I know this person's going to say yes. And then half the time you finally have a meeting, or you finally sit down with this person or get on the phone with them, and you're like, what? I thought this person was going to be easy. And then the person you thought for sure would say no ends up saying yes.
Yeah. They surprise the heck out of you. I mean, it's so many of my yeses that have really come through. It's like, oh, I didn't see that coming,
Right.
I just did the next thing, right? I think this is good because you're right. It's kind of like the whole health conversation. It's really, there is no magic pill. You have to eat right and exercise and just get active, and there you go. I mean, maybe track your food so you don't overeat, but it's like there's really no magic pill. And it's the same with sales or just fear or what have you, is to take the action. There's really no other way around it, and you and me both could sit here and say every day, look guys, it'll get easier. But until they say like, take the action and notice it for themselves, we're just lip service. We're just saying it and they're not experiencing it. So I love this approach. I love this go for the no. And I'm excited to see that this is your platform and that, it's reframing it for people so that no becomes the yes. No becomes like what you're really, not afraid of anymore, and, and all of that. So yeah, this is exciting to talk about. So I really want to dive back and kind of dial back the journey that you've been on as an entrepreneur. And like you said, this wasn't where exactly you started, but what was the bravest moment? You've been in business for a long time, but what was that really brave moment that shifted everything, and what was that like?
So probably the bravest moment was what happened when we launched our company was Richard was the trainer and the speaker of the two of us. I mean, he really, I knew the content, but I was content being the marketer. So I would make the cold calls, I would write the newsletters, I would do all of that. And then when we did the rebranding, when we became Courage Crafters, we did a lot of work and still do a lot of work in the direct sales industry. And, our audiences sometimes are 80, 90% female. So he said, I don't love traveling alone. It's not any fun. And if we traveled together and spoke together, it would be amazing. And our audiences, a lot of them are 90% female. You should be up there on stage. Plus, I was starting to have a passion for this topic. The only problem was I had made it my personal goal in life to never engage in public speaking. So, I had a terrifying, horrifying presentation in 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember which now, on the dangers of smoking that went so badly, it basically scarred me. And I became one of these people that I would do extra credit to not have to give a oral presentation. I would be like, let me do 2 book reports, but let me write them.
Sick on the day that you had to stand up in front of.
Oh God, absolutely hated it. When I got to college, finally, I remember taking a public speaking class and I fought my way through that. It was so painful, but I did it. And so now here he is going like, you need to step up, you need to do this. So I started doing free presentations everywhere I could, and I was bad. And then my first like real outing, like the real big paid speaking engagement, was in front of 2,000 people. And it was pretty terrifying, but I did it. And I did it okay. It's certainly not where I am today, 10 years later. I'm leagues ahead. But that was probably, I guess, my bravest step up moment, was pushing myself to do something that I really never wanted to do. Thank God I have a passion for the topic. I mean, if you told me today to speak on, like solar power or something, I'm sure I would be totally nervous, You're like,
I don't care about this stuff right now.
Right.
This is good. And I'll tell you, one of my braves I've been an entrepreneur over 11 years now, but it's like about 5 years ago, I was like, I got to speak and I don't want to, but I know that's what's going to shift my business. And of course I knew my topic. I loved my topic. I loved helping people inside of it. But it was so scary because I remember a few times in the early years, and I took a college class. I fought through that, like our parallel life here. Right. But it's so powerful for you to speak about this, because I am sure someone's listening. I've actually done a whole program and a course about like, you got to speak your way to profits and to money and to the cash flow. At some point, it really does make a difference if if you can say yes to it, right? Yes. And I don't know if this is true for you, but what I found is when you stop making it about you and start focusing on what are you talking about that's going to make such a difference to even one person in the audience. And like you said, you found the why, the passion inside of the message. Then the talk isn't about you anymore, and what your hair looks like. or any of that. So
absolutely. Yeah, there were a couple things I learned. I mean, definitely having the passion was a big part of it, and some tricks that you learn if you just study a little bit about professional speaking is and not getting yourself hung up on how you should position your hands and how you should look and everything. But Richard was like, we need to set you up for success. So let's let's start you off with cover the things that you know really well. Tell the stories that you know really well. And if it's your personal story, it's really hard for you to screw up your own story because you tend to not forget, right? So that, that is key.
Yeah, I love it. And so that was about 10 years ago, right? So you've been doing it ever since. And so what has been the bravest even in the last couple years? Like what's been the next thing that you guys have had to face?
Well, the next, we've done a couple things. One, what kind of the next iteration, I guess, because as you know, I mean, us entrepreneurs, we love to do multiple projects. Right. We love to see things and be like, hey, this is a problem that I think I could solve. So one of the things that since we've published and self-published a lot of books, our next thing is to help people and guide people to kind of do the same thing we have. And that's been really challenging for us because I think it's how do we pull out 20 years of knowledge and experience in this particular topic and share it with people and to really provide value. And to be brutally honest with you, there's a lot of fear around sharing something new. It's we question, like, are we good enough? Like, are we providing enough value? And is it good enough? Is it different enough? Is it cutting edge enough? And so Richard and I luckily we're like our own support system, and we go back and forth a lot about having to reassure each other, like, yes, we know what we're doing. We've done this time and time again. We have these fundamental philosophies. If you don't have someone, though, I would say find some kind of support. Find either a mentor or somebody who's kind of doing the same thing or something, that kind of gets you. That's not like your sister or your mom, because they don't get it.
They want to protect you. They'll make it safe for you. Like, I find that my family is not necessarily the person who's going to push me or stretch me.
They won't push you, and they will keep you safe. Absolutely. In fact, they'll be the ones to be like, oh, you probably shouldn't do it. Like, don't do it. Don't do it.
You need to slow down. You're working too hard. I'm like,
right.
That's not what I want to hear.
No, exactly. So that is what we're in literally right now. Is doing that. And it's a challenge. And most of it is, there's technical strategies to launching a new part of a business. But there's so much of it is just mindset. So much of it is just beating down the dragons that come up in your mind and the fear that likes to pop up and say, who are you kidding? You guys, you're not good enough to do this. And you have to fight it constantly.
Yeah. It's, I renamed my business to Brave Masters, right? And so, one of the things about mastery in my mind is that brave is about how fast can you catch yourself? How fast can you, recognize, observe your mindset and observe your thoughts and get over, like, hear the fear, observe the fear, see the fear, but choose out of it or choose the action anyway. And so the faster I've done that, the more accelerated my results have shown up. Or, you move through things faster and not stay stalled out or anything like that. So have you experienced that as well inside of the business?
Oh, absolutely. I observe it all the time. In fact, one of my little strategies around this, and Richard and I came up with this year, we both have words for the year, and mine was simplicity. Yeah. And my word was simplicity for exactly the reason you just described. Like, one of the things that I think we all do to kind of a little bit self-sabotage is overcomplicate things. Sure. And when you overcomplicate it, then it becomes, well, it's too complicated. I can't pull it off. I can't do it right now. And so you push it off, and then it becomes next year's project. So we were like, let's iterate this so fast, but keep it so simple. Like, what's the simplest? And this was something from a Tim Ferriss podcast that I had heard. And he said, I look for the most simple, elegant solution. What can I do? That. Yeah. I love it too. The most simple and elegant solution that I could just test this, pull this off. And then once you do it, all of the fear kind of subsides. And now you stepped into the fear. And now there's probably something else you fear, but at least you got, you got past that initial. And so you move to the next step. So keeping things simple so that we don't overcomplicate it really has been kind of pushing us forward. Like, don't make this complicated.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't ever heard it that way. And I love that because I think a huge part of the problem around fear for people is that they give themselves space to not, first of all, they don't identify that it's fear. And then so the reflection of it shows up as I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't, it's complicated. I can't do this. Or, it's almost like, look where you're saying I can't. Or don't. Like can't and don't are probably some signals that there might be fear going on, because we'll immediately just make the excuse, make the reason, and then not really recognize that it's fear in the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that. I might take that one on myself. Like just make it, and I'm moving into, I built my business off speaking and but I had to get over the fear first. But I built this iteration of my business mostly by speaking and showing up offline, meaning, face to face in front of audience and all of that. And so my new next Brave is more video, more online, visibility at the highest level. And it's for me, it feels different. I mean, and I can easily say I'm creating that, but I don't get the immediate response, if it's not a live audience, so if I'm doing a training and nobody's really there watching, but I got to act like they are,
Oh, totally. That is a whole level of difference and brings up a lot of fear for me too. I know exactly what you mean, because you play off of energy, you play off of an audience. And so this digital audience, you're like, I hope there's someone out there. It's challenging.
Webinar?
Yeah. Didn't really happen.
Yeah. Like you and I talking, like, this is great. I can do this all day long.
Right.
But that next level of like making up, what, this online world is really about. That's just I didn't start there. That's not where I started. So I'm diving into that this year. And the fact that you just said that about being simple is just awesome, because I'm going to use that one.
Good. Yeah, I know. When I hit on it, I'm like, this is my word.
This is your word. This is awesome for this coming year, is keep it simple. And I love that. And I like the simple, elegant. Like, what's the simple, elegant solution? That's cool. And you kind of took my next question, and that was, how do you deal with fear, right? So this was perfect. And I guess the other curiosity I have is what is, because you guys are married. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How long? I mean, longer than
no. So we got married like 2 years after we launched the business.
Okay, great. Got it. So I used to work with my husband as well. He's down the hall. He works at home. He's a musician. So he works at home and works for himself as well. But we used to work in the business that was a different, model or service. Years ago. And so for those listening that are in relationship or working with their spouse or partner or whatever, what have been some of the bravest things you guys have had to come through in that relationship and that, dynamic?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll tell you the biggest thing, and it's the word control. It's the word control. And so for us, it was, who really is going to own something, who's going to take control of it. And we were really inefficient the first few years, because like he would want to see everything I was doing. If I was sending out a letter to somebody, it was like, all right, let me read this letter and then let me change it and make it better. And then luckily came to the conclusion, he was like, you know what, I'm making this different, but I'm not necessarily making it better. It's just this need to control everything. And so both of us, and I wanted to control things too. So it was like, we just had to get to a point where it's like, okay, you take this, I'll take this, let's have a conversation. But at some point, you just have to give it up and go like, okay, it is what it is. And I mean, these days, Richard used to be involved in so much. Now half the time he doesn't know what's going on. Like he just has no idea. And it's better that way, right? We get more done. So I think for a couple, that was a big thing. The other thing that I think we've kind of grown out of it, but initially the first couple of years too, was like every conversation was about the business.
Yes.
It just became like, like we're work. right, ever consuming. You go out to dinner and it's like the whole time. And I remember a few times saying, like, when we pull up to the restaurant, we're done with this conversation. I am not having a glass of Cabernet and talking about this still. Like, please, let's not drag this all night long, right? Because you want to go out and have a good time and not talk about business.
Yeah,
so
talk about something else.
Right. So little challenges, but definitely the control thing I think is big.
I think that's great that you brought that up, because and just to identify it for people, because when I look back, and I would call it now, is what I would call it is identify your roles, like stay in your lane, pick your roles, and be 100% responsible for that role, right? If you're marketing, be marketing. If you're, and we, now that I know more now, looking back, I don't think we did that well. It was kind of like we're just supposed to be 50-50. We had some role distinction, and clearly just some, services we did differently. Like he was good at one thing and I wasn't. So, but inside the business management and the operations, it was kind of this crossover that never really, worked or wasn't efficient enough. And not nobody's fault, just unaware, and I think for us to bring this conversation to people that might be in that, I think there is a way to make it work. And I think you just hit on one of the biggest challenges that people don't see right up front. So they can come into it and go, okay, control is going to be probably our biggest issue because we want to do it our way and we want to do it, we might feel like we know it better or whatever, but ultimately we've got to be about the end result and be about the role that we're in, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why we get into business for ourselves, I want to control everything. I want to try this and try that. So yeah, when that gets taken away or when it gets threatened and you both have a vision, somebody's got to win. Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. Who's got veto power?
Yeah, that's, I would say he does. And it probably goes to an experience thing, because Richard's a little older than me and he has more experience. So I usually defer to him, although it's kind of funny because what happened was over the years, I have taken over more and more and more of the Go For No business, and he's been able to do things on the side. And so he likes to say I completely hijacked his brand.
Got it. I totally get that. Well, I am just really happy for your success and for, you continuing to stay brave and stay in the game for the sake of serving the world at large. And I really honor that in your life. I think that's awesome. And so this whole no conversation is so exciting. I really love it. And it's given me some new thoughts to really consider. And so how do people connect with you? What's the best way that they can get in your circle?
So and you'll appreciate this as a branding expert, everything is Go For No. So it's goforno.com, and we have our secrets to conquering rejection, which is at goforno.com/motivation, which is basically the word motivation except with an N.
Love it.
So yeah, we like to typo. Nope. Right, I know it looks like a typo. No, we want to motivate people and keep them pushing and be staying persistent through the nose.
I love that. Yeah. And it's like, it really is tackling one of the biggest fears called rejection. So let's just get over it. Right. And the fact that you're committed to helping people get over that is just really powerful. So yay. And we'll make sure that link is in the show notes as well. But thank you for the gift. Thank you for that opportunity for people to learn and to connect with you. And you know what, sometimes I ask this question, and it is, if you were here and this was your last chance to share final wisdom, like this was your last interview, there's no more speaking, what would be that message that you want people to leave with?
My final message really would be, gosh, there's so many, but it really comes down, Jena, to me to have the courage to ask. And I know you can appreciate this from a brave standpoint, but so much of life is right there for just the asking. I guess you could say the taking, but the asking. Yeah. And so often we say no to ourselves before we give somebody else the chance to say no to us. So my message is, let people say no to you. Take that. Don't say no to yourself. So get out there and start asking.
I love that. That's a really powerful final message, even though I know it's not, but it is. It's so powerful to really take a dose of that and wake up in the morning and go, am I saying yes to me first? Mm-hmm. And then willing to ask for what you need. I love it. And that, I think, is in all areas of life, not just
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And I really appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency about this, and just keep doing what you're doing. I think it's fantastic what you're up to, and congratulations on getting your Brave on. And
thank you.
In the game. So
thanks so much. I appreciate being on your show. And yeah, you and I could probably do a podcast for like 4 hours.
Yeah, let's just do a training on all of it, right?
Yep.
Maybe so, right? Maybe
yeah.
so. But thank you again, and to everyone watching or listening, we really appreciate you and appreciate your feedback, so please give us some, and connect with Andrea, connect with me, and share what this has done for you, what ahas you might have heard or recognized, and what you're going to do about it. Like, what action steps can we hold the space for so that you really get what you want. So thank you for being here, and let's go get our Brave on. Thanks, everyone.